Andrew Rubin, CEO of Illumio, meeting you here at the Milken Institute Global Conference. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me, Rhonda.
And you were speaking on cybersecurity. This is your bailiwick. You have a company that's had really tremendous growth and achievement. I read an article about one of your executives a while back saying that you guys have a Star Wars approach to the way you conduct business. What does that mean exactly in the cybersecurity world?
Sure, I believe the article that you're referencing, the commentary, was in a Wall Street Journal article about the company a little while back. And the point that it was trying to make is that without visibility, you can't possibly understand how to defend something. And I think that particular comment was really around a facet or an aspect of our software that delivers an MRI-like capability for large enterprise that have sprawled and very often very distributed and heterogeneous infrastructure. And they're simply trying to start by figuring out what are all these things and how are they all talking to each other. And if you can picture building that map, very much like a Star Wars map, where you have lots of different individual objects, but they have relationships with one another. And understanding what those things are, how they're behaving, and in particular how they talk to and rely on one another, that's actually the start of the security conversation very often nowadays.
And then that is what you use to build up a cyber defense.
We do. So the way that we think about it is we want to start by delivering this MRI-like capability. We call it illumination. And it's the act of really understanding and visualizing what all of this compute that organizations rely on, the thing that they run their applications on or store their data in, and most importantly, how they all talk to each other. And from that very valuable picture that we build and deliver, we then have the ability to almost wrap a bodyguard or a protective shield around every one of these compute instances. But what's interesting about our software is that it's dynamic. So as these things move and continuously change over time, we're adjusting that protective profile to ensure that everything is always protected the right way.
You've had tremendous growth. Update us as to where you are in terms of customers, where you hope to go on that front, and the same with financing, because you've raised a lot of money. You've had investors, top CEOs from Salesforce.com and others looking at your company.
Absolutely. So on the financial front, on the fundraising front first, we raised $142.5 million, and we did it over 3 separate rounds of financing. And we're very fortunate to have been able to attract what I consider to be one of the most incredible syndicates of investors that's been assembled around a company in the enterprise and specifically the infrastructure security space. We have the expertise of obviously people like John Thompson, the chairman of Microsoft, but obviously spent a long time at Symantec. We have people like Steve Herod, who were the CTO of VMware for a very long time. And we've assembled this group of individuals and venture funds, and we lean on them for their expertise, not just the capital they provided. On the customer front, and that's the one that we tend to focus on every day, on the customer front, we've been fortunate to be able to announce customers like Morgan Stanley, Salesforce, NetSuite. And what's interesting, even in our first 18 months or so in market, is that we're finding that these problems are not an industry-specific problem. These are pervasive issues for any enterprise that relies on their data center and on their infrastructure to run their business. And of course, that's going to sound like everybody, and in a lot of ways it is nowadays. Our goal is really to be able to obviously continue to sign up more of those customers. And then I want to note that it's very important not to forget, you have to make those customers incredibly successful after signing them up. So although it's fun to announce them the day that they become a customer, it's equally and maybe even more important to make sure that we're making them successful over time and protecting them.
You have grown fast enough to be one of the unicorns that everyone talks about in Silicon Valley. Do you hope to go public one day? Are you going to be one of the unicorns that people have their eye on?
I'm glad you actually asked the question the way you did. I've said from the very beginning that I believe that the opportunity in cyber, and specifically what's happening in cyber today, this is the biggest opportunity that any of us have really ever seen. It actually starts with something very simple, which is the attack surface. The thing that we're trying to protect is growing parabolically. I was actually at a conference earlier today here at Milken, and somebody said that 90% of the data that exists in the world today was created in the last 24 months, which is a mind-boggling statistic. From a cyber perspective, that means that what we're trying to protect is growing faster than we can even imagine. So I think the opportunity to build a public company in the cyberspace and a meaningful platform public company, it really has arrived. We clearly want to do that. And what I've tried to do is in everything the company's done, the way we've assembled the team, the way that we've raised money and in particular who we've raised it from, we've tried to assemble every piece of the puzzle necessary, even in our early days, to make sure that we have an opportunity to do so.
Any timing on that?
Absolutely not. We're heads down building the company, and we're going to stay that way probably for some time.
Well, I look forward to speaking you as the CEO of a public company perhaps next time.
Thank
Andrew
you.
Rubin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.